Hi everyone, my name is Iyeshima and I'm the project director at East New York Farms. And I've invited my friend Kristina Erskine to lead a discussion with me today um, on bridging the gap bridging the intergenerational gap in the food justice movement. So I would like to go over a few quick PowerPoints on East New York Farms and our project and what we aim to do in the community. And then in the middle, Kristina and I will lead a discussion, open discussion, and at the end, we'll reserve all questions. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat box as we're discussing. So this is where Kristina and I started. This is our mentor, Maggie. Maggie definitely groomed and trained us in the food justice movement. This photo was taken for the New York Times. I forgot how long ago, probably 2013 or 2012 in high school. We were on our high school campus farm that Kristina and I helped started. And yeah, this is what we've done. So East New York Farms. So East New York Farms' mission is to organize youth and adults to address food justice in our community by promoting local sustainable agriculture and community-led economic development. And throughout this PowerPoint presentation, I will definitely explain to you how we've been doing that for the past 22 years. So in the 1950s, this is what East New York used to look like. This is a map that shows you all the apartments, the homes, and all the factories that was in East New York. And at the time, this was a heavily populated white neighborhood. Where our office is located is called the African Square. You'll see a cemetery that has all the white families that's buried there. And then where the park is located, they found out that there's a lot of African remains that's left over. So now they're gonna make the park become a nice African museum or some form of like celebration in the next few years. And then in the 1990s, this is what East New York looks like. You see a lot of empty lots, and this is like a close-up picture of what the lots were. A lot of empty lots. So what happened is that we have the white flight era where white families will purposely burn down their homes so that they could move into suburban areas. And in result of that, you have a lot of abandoned buildings that would then become demolished, that would then leave a lot of empty lots. And out of that become East New York Farms. So the community was really struggling during the time. So a lot of organizations, nonprofit organizations come together and have a community forum and basically ask the community what works in East New York, what doesn't work, and what do they want to see in the community in the next 15 years. So out of this survey result, the three top major areas that the community wanted was community/people resources. They wanted social services program and providers, job economic development programs, which is basically what encompass East New York Farms. And I skipped over this briefly. East New York Farms is a project of United Community Centers, and our organization is a multi-service organization. We have a daycare, we have PTE, which is Protecting the East. It's a project that focuses on sexual health, and East New York Farms, which focuses on food justice. So this is typically what our community forums look like. Every month we try to have a discussion with the community just to give them updates on what our program is doing and to offer them and ask them for any advice and where we should be moving forward. So this is what our first garden looked like. This is the UCC Youth Farm, which later on in the presentation, you'll see a better photo. So this is where we started. Our farm is half an acre. We have community members came out and help us topping off the land because during that time, East New York and currently have a high contamination of lead. So in order to prevent our crops to take that in and to give it to the community, we had to top it off with mulch and which is wood chips and also soil. So this is one of our community gardens. This is what derived out of the community forum. A lot of community members were taking over the land and they were turning it into community gardens. And most of our community gardens are either through Green Thumb or the Brooklyn Queensland Trust. Our program. So the UCC Youth Farm, this is our first farm. Most of the crops that's grown here is helps to support the farmers market that we have during the week on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. Community members, they're able to come and volunteer on the farm whenever they want or whenever somebody's on site. And out of that, we have the youth program, which I'll talk more about later on. But our farm is self-maintained by our staff and volunteers. Pink House's community farm is on a NYCHA development site close to our main office space. Here is also a half acre. Most of the produce here, we do a fresh food box distribution twice a week. So residents from Pink Houses are able to come down and receive whatever they want, whatever produce we have on the stand that day. They get to choose what they would like. We also do live cooking demonstrations with the produce that's harvested so that the residents could try something new. If they don't know how to cook, like for example, bitter melons, we always would try to create a recipe out of it so that they could learn and go home and replicate the recipe themselves. UCC Fresh Farm, this garden was created so that our youth participant and their family members could grow together, grow whatever that they need. We provide them with the support and the labor to maintain the garden space. Wortman Community Garden. This garden just turned 1 year this year. This garden is new as well, and here is for community members that's within this area to grow anything that they want. It is self-maintained by them. We have over 30, I believe we have 36 community garden beds, and we have about 36 community gardeners, and we still have people that are asking to join the garden. And this site is special, which I will explain a little bit later as well. So our first farmers market was started in 1998. This is literally how our market looks like in 1998. This is Miss Joanna. She's a community gardener and she's been gardening for years in East New York. She had some door, chairs to create tables, and whatever she grew in her community garden, she would sell at the market. So in order to support Miss Joanna's effort, we partnered with her and then we expanded our farmers market. So now we have more vendors, therefore we're providing more access to the community. Then we started to incorporate farmers from upstate New York and also in New Jersey to come to the market and to provide what we can't to the community. Whatever we can't grow, those farmers will supplement and provide it at the farmers market. And our farmers market is unique in the sense that we don't only have like freshly grown produce. We also have cooked food, hot food, cakes, and different varieties for the neighborhood. These are some community gardeners who will also sell at our farmers market. And some events that we have right here, we have Bike New York that will come every year, and they will tune up bikes, teach kids how to bike, and give away free bikes. So at the UCC table, most of our produce that are grown at the UCC Youth Farm, we hire youth every year to help maintain and service the farm and also the farmers market. And I'll talk about our youth program in depth, but this is typically what our station would look like that the youth will self-run. How do we engage the community? So share table is unique in a sense that at our share table, we allow community gardeners to drop off their produce and we will sell it for them. If community gardeners have excess produce that they don't know what to do with it, or they already given out to the community or their family members, they could drop it off at share table and our youth will sell it for them. So this is our share table set up at our farmers market. We have some cabbage and tomatoes, and we definitely do have to keep track of the gardeners who drop off produce and how much they sold that day. So a lot of data tracking for our organization is very important. And most of our gardeners, they are senior citizens, if not over 50, so they're elders. And some of them are retired, so gardening is an hobby for them, and they love it and they enjoy it. And this is another way for them to supplement their income. And more photos from our farmers market and that involve community engagement. So this photo to your left is our hot pepper contest. So we grow all of our hot peppers at our UCC youth farm. And each year we have a hot pepper contest where regular customers could join, and they have to eat up to six hot peppers and win a prize at the end. Here we have the African Love Institute that come every market and have a drumming circle, which is very interactive and entertaining for the customers and vendors. Down here we have our annual corn roast that people love and enjoy, and it's also a communal collaborative event. And over here we have our Labor Day celebration every year, where we have local artists showcase themselves in their music and bring the community to life. And here are some more celebrations that we have at our farmers market for the youth and kids. And also we do have a lot of community workshops. So in this photo to your right, they're building a compost sifting station, and it's a way to like keep the community engaged, teach them new skills. And over here we have the seed saving workshop, teaching local community members how to seed save. And this was facilitated by True Love Seeds. We also have intergenerational breakfasts where we invite community gardeners, parents, and youth, and staff will make breakfast for them. And they also have an interactive workshop where each table is asked certain questions, and they would have to have a dialogue among themselves. And then at the end, they will do an outshare of what they learn about each other. Also, in order to incorporate like intergenerational sharing and bridging the gap, we have youth assist community gardeners in their garden or their backyard garden space to help them maintain weed harvest, whatever that they need to get done. Our youth will definitely help them. Providing access. So we do make sure that we have fresh food available for community members. So the fresh food pantry at Pink Houses is very important for us. The Clean Soil Initiative, this ties into the Wortman Community Garden. So as I mentioned earlier, East New York, a lot of our land and soil have high lead. And in order to prevent the community from consuming that lead, we're providing clean soil to them. And the Wortman Community Garden is where we do our clean soil research. So we've partnered with the city through the, I'm trying to think of the organization, sorry, just slipped my head. Office of Environmental Remediation. They will provide us with sediment from construction site that's been tested. We'll blend that sediment with compost to make clean soil. So then we're able to provide our community gardeners with fresh soil that doesn't have any contaminants. And we basically teach them how to plant with the soil and what best practices to use with the soil. And we definitely teach them. We have workshops on soil contamination, what is important, what is not important, what to be careful of, what some people, and like, what are the myths that are out there about the plants that could remove lead from soil. We also have yearly compost distribution. We receive 40 pallets each year, and we're able to distribute 10 per household to 10 bags of compost per household. Typically, we have about over 400 people will come and collect compost. This year, due to the budget cut from DSNY and the city, we weren't able to do that, so we're able to give out clean soil. We also have a plant distribution. This year, due to COVID, I gave away all the plants for free because people are not working. And we want to make sure that the work that we're doing is reflecting of what the community needs in that moment. So most of these plants were grown and given out for free to community members who want them. We also have a yearly mini grant. So each year we give out about $10,000 to local community members who wants to provide access to healthy food in East New York. And this is one of our recipients. She received a mini grant and she started a green cart in East New York. We also offer food scrap collection. So we have a 24/7 drop-off food scrap collection system at our UCC youth farm. So community members, anyone could come and drop off food scraps on our site. We turn that into compost. Most of the compost, we use it on our farm, but if community members stop by and ask for compost, we definitely give it to them at no cost. We also hire community educators. So these are trained chefs who will go out into the community and perform live cooking demonstrations at senior centers, WIC centers, pop-up farmers markets, anywhere, anyone that reach out to us, they definitely perform those live cooking demonstrations. Last year, our live cooking demonstrations or community chef program was based around hypertension. Because in East New York, we have a high rate of hypertension and diabetes. We want to make sure that our programs are geared towards addressing those needs. So we created a cookbook, which you could find on our website that's available, that the chef will use those recipes and make them at the live cooking demonstrations. And at the cooking demonstration, we also provide health bucks, which is $2 checks that folks could use at the farmers markets. So our youth program, these are some of our youth from our last year camping trip. Fortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able to do any trips this year. So we have a 9-month paid internship program. We hire 21 first-year interns at ages 13 to 14 years old and 16 returning interns who play the role of second-year, third-year youth interns, and the youth are broken down into subgroups. So in total, we have about 37 interns for our 9-month program internship. And then we have other interns who have phased out of our youth program for their 5th year, I like to call them. They're placed with other organizations, or we give them more leadership position in the organization. And all of our youth either lives in East New York or goes to school in East New York. So these are some photos of our youth last year assisting community gardeners. Along with that, we do not only teach our youth how to farm and how to grow food and connect with the land that they're working with and the space that they're in, we also train our youth. So we do have a lot of workshops that the youth will go through the whole entire year. I believe since our program is 9 months, we are able to do a lot of workshops. So typically we do over 20 workshops within the program. Some of them are advocacy training, social justice reforms, history of community gardens, public speaking, college preparation, and non-college preparation if they want to go to vocational school or trade school, financial literacy, tool safety, and more. And this is a photo from last year where youth rebuilt our compost area. And I believe this was last year when they went to the climate march. They were really excited about that. And these are our youth after a harvest ship. Bonding. So bonding is really important for us. We're with them for 9 months, so they become our baby essentially, and we potentially see them for the next 3 years. So we make sure that we take the youth on trips out of the city, let them explore the world or expand their horizon. So we do overnight camping trips. We go to upstate farm tours or out of state. Typically, we go to Pennsylvania to visit some of our partner organizations out there. We go to the beach, let them enjoy the summer. They get a tour of their neighborhoods. Even though they live in East New York, doesn't mean they've been everywhere in East New York and all the cool places in East New York. So they get a tour of their neighborhood and fun trips like apple picking. So this photo is when they went pumpkin picking or apple picking. This photo is at our camping trip where they had to cross over a rope bridge to face their fears, and they all did it. They were scared, but at the end they realized it was easy. And here we tend to have a lot of meetings with our youth where we create an open space for them to express their feelings, their frustration, anything with staff. So this is one of our meetings with them. And to build on that, we also have the Youth Food Justice Network. So we're not only training leaders, we're also bridging their relationship and their partnerships with other organizations. So with the Youth Food Justice Network, they're able to meet various different youth-led organizations across the US. And they come together at the end of the year and they will have one huge gathering. It could be a summit or a huge craft day that's being hosted by us. And they basically they teach each other. So it's called peer-to-peer exchange. So they teach each other what they know or what they want to know, and they support each other as much as possible. And for today's discussion, I've invited a close friend of mine, Kristina Erskine. Kristina and we've known each other since high school. We've done everything together when it comes to food justice and youth program development. And I asked her to join me here today for this discussion because I think our voices are pivotal right now in the food justice movement, and the work that we've been doing from high school till now is very important, and it's important for everyone on this call to understand that youth voices matter, and we're trying to intentionally create spaces where youth could take leadership and for adults to feel comfortable giving that form of leadership to youth themselves. So Kristina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to A Growing Culture and everyone participating in this amazing Juneteenth celebration. I'm really humbled and happy to be here. Thank you so much, Iyeshima, for setting the stage and giving such an in-depth walkthrough of East New York Farms and their programs and all they have to offer. I think through all of that, what really stands out to me is youth are threaded throughout East New York Farms work. And to everyone tuning in, I would say, East New York Farms has decades of experience. So don't feel intimidated if, your programs aren't as robust. Everyone has a role and everyone's work is important. What I do want to highlight and what we do want to really dive into here is the role that youth empowerment plays as we're talking about challenging and redefining systems. So for me personally, youth empowerment work is so important because firstly, Iyeshima and I are a product of youth empowerment efforts and youth programs. Youth are a minority. So I know that sounds strange, but a lot of people don't realize that whether it be culturally or just socially, youth are a minority. They're often overlooked. And like Iyeshima said, it's often difficult for people to take youth voices seriously. But they're also disproportionately impacted by a lot of different issues that we don't often think about. For young people, they sit at an intersectionality that's very unique, and they participate in a lot of our largest systems, especially here in New York City. Our education system is humongous. And so from personal experience, we know that as a young person, your energy and your thought process is very powerful because it's unrefined. It's not weathered down by adulting by life, you know, reality, youth have boundless potential and imagination and creativity, and they're so themselves. They're curious, they're imaginative, and that's what we need to harness to challenge systems. So we really focus on youth empowerment work in everything that Iyeshima and I have done, because we know we have that lightning in a bottle moment with youth developing in a transitional period in their lives, whether it be from middle school to high school or high school to college. Those are pivotal moments for people. And it's really important to give them the tools they need to navigate and articulate what they're already aware of, and what they're already processing. So the youth empowerment work that we do really just aims to give youth the resources they need to navigate the systems that impact them and that they impact, so that they can shape the future that is theirs. And I also just want to highlight that for folks thinking about, you know, how can we bring youth into our spaces in just very fundamental ways? I would say it's best to just start by reflecting and really think about what brought you joy as a child. I think so much of finding yourself in life and navigating life is actually returning to that childhood joy and instinct. So it's very, it's super meta, and you know, we really need to be reflecting about how you show up in spaces and how you interact with youth as people. And I also want to highlight, especially navigating coronavirus and the stress that it has put on our systems, and we can see that our systems infrastructures are frail, and youth have gone through, you know, like a high school student going through coronavirus right now. That perspective is very unique and should inform changes in policies and structures that, you know, ultimately don't serve them. So I think we really just need to start with reflecting on ourselves and our experiences. And from there, it can be very easy for people to actually integrate youth in their spaces. I don't know if you want to interject here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. With our experience, I remember when Kristina and I were ninth graders in high school, and Maggie was like, we're going to a conference, and she drove like 5 hours to take us to a conference, and then we had to lead a workshop, and when we went, it was only adult in the space. And then when we went up and we started speaking, and folks at the end, folks were like, wow, how old are you guys? Where are you guys from? And when we tell them, they're like, wow, there's like youth that are taking over and taking charge and leading this discussion. And they were just sitting there and like eating everything up. And then we felt empowered because we were given this opportunity where we had to step up, create our own workshop. We had to design it, however, we had to figure out how to use PowerPoint, how to use an email, send a proper email, and all that as ninth graders. And now when I'm working with my youth, and I'm like, how do you guys send an email? And they don't know. And then when they show me an email and the verbiage that they use, I'm like, guys, this is so inappropriate. That's not how you do that. But they were never given the opportunity on how to properly construct that. So Kristina and I, we want to make sure that we're creating that space, and we're being very intentional about how we're training the next generation. Because if we're not doing it now, who is?
1000%. I think when we think about empowerment, when we think about building social capital, when we think about sustainability, if you're not bringing young people into those spaces, ultimately, who are you passing your programs and your knowledge and your ways of being down to? Youth ultimately are people. And I think that's one thing that can be a barrier for a lot of folks, is not being comfortable with getting uncomfortable and talking with youth. I know a lot of people that are intimidated by kids and like talking to children. And I think really just thinking of them as people, and looking at yourself and feeling open to challenge yourself, that, you know, you don't know everything. Even Iyeshima and I always say this, we don't believe in stale leadership. We are actually actively building young leaders so that we can transition out of this phase of like being youth leaders, because we're aware that we do not know everything. And we need to make sure that We are bridging intergenerational connections to make this movement truly sustainable. And also what Iyeshima highlighted that is super important is let youth fail, let youth experience things based on their suggestions, let them experience trial and error. And don't be afraid of that, really. That's what it boils down to when it comes to bringing youth into spaces, because youth can truly be integrated in anything you do. Anything that your organization does, you can hold an event just for youth. Even that, just opening up the space, because I think a lot of people might assume that young people aren't interested in food justice or aren't interested in a lot of these issues, when these issues impact them tremendously. They're aware of them, but giving them that space opens up so many possibilities. I think for Iyeshima and myself, if we didn't have the youth programs that we did, we wouldn't be here talking to you today. So I think just opening that space up and allowing youth to be in your space to begin with, allowing information to be accessible to youth is super important.
And to add on to that as well, at East New York Farms, our youth is a part of almost everything that we do. I remember whenever I'm doing an interview for a job opening, I call on my youth. I train with them. I ask them, do you guys have any questions that you want to ask anyone ahead of time? And I have them read over the resume, the interview questions, the job description, so that they could have an idea of what they're walking into. And the most recent interview that I had with my interns, I had 4 of them on the call, and they asked amazing questions. They were all on time. They all showed up. And I was so excited to see that youth who are in 10th, 11th grade could take leadership like this. And I felt confident in the sense that they could take on more, and what else can they do if we presented them this platform for them to do that. And I think what Kristina and I's work is that we're making sure that we create the platform. And there's other youth that are doing similar work, but there's not enough. We were lucky enough to transition from a youth internship program into a leadership position where I'm now, like, I'm under 24 and I'm running a nonprofit organization, and 75% of my staff, they are under 24 as well. And I try to make sure that whatever space that I'm in, I'm sharing that with folks my age, so that they could also build on their skill and they could evolve and flourish into something much more just by providing them with that gateway opportunity.
1,000%. I think everyone can think of, you know, a moment in your life where you had a light bulb moment where everything made sense and your mind was blown. Imagine if that moment had happened earlier in your life. Imagine what can happen to this world if youth are given the tools they need and the support they need to process and navigate spaces that impact them tremendously. Honestly, it's endless. There is so much potential in young people when you allow them to rise to the occasion and trust them and trust their journey. I think, do you want to dive into questions now? Yeah.
Wait, I want to say one more thing before we dive into questions. I believe we're going to go over a little bit. So when it comes to creating a project or a nonprofit organization, I would just say to everyone that's on this call who's going to be inspired after today's lineup is that make sure that whatever you're creating is intentional and is for the community. There's some times where I go in communities and I realize that some organizations are just there, but it's not reaching to the community. And one thing that UCC was really great with, and being a part of a settlement house and been around for over 60 years, is to be incorporated with the community and get the community voice as much as possible and reflect that. I think it's very important to know your audience and who you're serving. And if you're going into a community, you're hiring from within the community and creating some form of cycle within the community. Because East New York, through COVID, we are we're kind of, I want to say self-sufficient in a sense, but not really. We're not perfect, but we have the food, we have the land, we have the community gardens. We have the most community gardens in the city. We have over 60, if not over 80 community gardens, and we still have more. And we want to make sure that we're here to serve the neighborhood as much as possible in whatever way we can. And so any other organization that's out there, I would want to say that as well, that as long as you're serving the community and you're intentionally building your network for the community, you will always feel good within yourself and always feel like your mission is valid as much as possible.
100%. We have one question. Ruth asks, what is preventing AllNight Rebuilding from having community gardens like the ones at Pink Houses, or what would it take?
I know there's another community gardens in a NYCHA facility in Brownsville that's being operated by Green City Force, and we were also in partnership with them with that. I wasn't there when Pink Houses Community Garden started at NYCHA, but from what I've learned, it's a lot of, you need to get the people that want it. So NYCHA only moves when the residents say something. So you would need to get a committee together and go to their city elected to get that process moving. You also need to find the space on NYCHA. We were lucky enough to just find that open field on NYCHA, and we had NYCHA residents who were already gardening, like they had these mini garden plots around the NYCHA sites. And we just reached out, we were like, listen, there's this land that's sitting there. We could help you guys rally to get a community garden here. And they did. We went to the city, we spoke to them, we applied for all the licenses and get it together. However, our NYCHA site is operated and run by NYCHA. It's not really a Green Thumb or Brooklyn Queens Land Trust kind of model. So NYCHA has all say when it comes to permitting us to operate on that site. So to answer your question, it has to get people powered. The people of that community need to be empowered to go ahead and do it.
Thank you for asking, Ruth. We have another question from Julia. Can you share more about the Soil Initiative and share steps for how people can replicate in other cities?
Yay! So the Soil Initiative, really was started in 2014. I did a workshop on Wednesday about this. So basically the city was dumping like all this soil or virgin sediment that basically came from like a glacier and settled like within this area in Long Island and Queens. And when they were doing construction, they would basically take all that soil that they dig up / sand that they dig up to landfill. And we were like, let's test this. Pearl, Dr. Sarah Pearl, who is the research scientist behind all this, our capstone project was focused on soil remediation. Partner with Office of Environmental Remediation. They reached out to us. They said, hey, I'm doing this research. Would you mind being involved with this? Can I test this out at your site? And we said, sure, why not? So we did the research with them for 4 years, and we saw that it was working. So at first they mixed the soil with the sediment, with 33% of like compost or something like that. And we started growing in it, and we started to see like how is the soil working, what the soil looks like. I wish I had more photos to share. And over time, we started to see the yield of the soil and what different composition or makeup of the soil is. Like we test the microbes, all the minerals, and anything, if there's any contaminant in it. So Pearl, literally, this was her idea that she wanted to study. She saw that other cities have been testing for heavy metals in their soil. They're trying to figure out how to fix the issue. And she basically wanted to expand on that in New York City. So after that, we reached out to other community gardens. I believe we reached out to 5 of them. We were like, hey, we're doing this test, we're doing this research, would you mind being a part of it? And they said yes. And then every year we'll go out and take records of like, how did they use the soil, what did they grow in the soil, and what are their experience with the soil. Now, when we give them the soil, we don't tell them how to use it. Some people are like, the soil is too sandy, and they added stuff to it. We didn't tell them how to use it. We're like, this is the soil, we know it works, here's it, you could do whatever you want to do with it. And these were community gardens that were contaminated. They had lead, high lead levels. Some people just added to the dirt that they had there. Some people cap their community garden and spread it out. And some people added fertilizers and more compost to it and started growing. So we try to see like what people are doing with their soil. For us, we didn't add anything to it. We just used a 50-50 ratio that we had, and we saw that it was working.
We have a few more questions. Thank you for asking that question, Julia. Anna Maria asks, how do you recruit or get youth interested? Any tips? My org has great success with young kids through gardening and cooking workshops, but teens seem harder to connect with. What works for you?
A stipend. So some youth will really join the program because they're like, my grandparents' gardens and I have experience with gardening. Some you join it because they see that they get paid and it's a 9-month internship, and they did the math and they thought it was a solid job opportunity for them. So yeah, our youth are paid. They're not paid like minimum wage. They're paid a stipend. And they work decent amount of hours for the whole year. And then we definitely teach them how to save and how to spend wisely. Some of our youth, they do help their family out when it comes to bills and taking care of the home. So we do understand. And yeah, stipends, that's how we get them engaged. And then when the trips are important, making it fun and light for them, because you don't want to always have youth come on site and just work the land. You want to make sure that they're taking something else from that. So how can you make it fun and interactive? The shifts that our youth work are short. They work 3 to 4 hour shifts. They get their breaks and they go home. And it's not always farm. We split it up with trips so that it could be fun and interactive for them as well. And we give them the space to select the trips that they want. And then they will go back and tell their friends about it. And they will bring their friends, like 10 of their friends in the office, to sign up. And sometimes we're like, you guys are all friends. We can't put you in the same group. Yeah, that's how we get them engaged in the program.
I would also say that like recruitment and retention is difficult in general. And particularly for like youth of color in this urban setting. Firstly, you know, you're dealing with, this is healing work, so you're dealing with youth that for many different reasons, there's trauma around farm work and food. So I think you need to be mindful of that in your approach. A lot of folks look down on farm work and, you know, want to be the furthest away from physical labor. So it's very important to think about that. And like Iyeshima said, keep it fun and engaging. I think the best way to start is to meet them where they're at. So what happened with us actually, we ended up in high school harvesting vegetables throughout the farm, and that we did that for a potluck. So we had like an intergenerational potluck. We got to use ingredients from the farm. And I think that really brought folks together because everyone loves food, everyone needs food, everyone needs to eat. And that was a way for youth to fully connect the farm to what they actually eat. And then yes, absolutely pay your youth. And then I'd also say, you know, teens are just, you know, too cool for school. You know, they don't want to get dirty. They don't want to, you know, do all these things. But if you meet them where they're at and stay consistent with it, you'll have youth that can see that it's not just about the literal farm work. There's so much that food teaches us that they can apply to anything.
Yeah, wait, can I say two more things?
Sure.
Two more points. Kristina mentioned trauma around farming. You definitely want to acknowledge that, share that history, and educate your youth about that, and ask them, like, why do they feel this way about farming? And explain the different levels of farming, honestly, because it's not just, when they think of farming, they really think of a tractor and and a straw hat or whatever it is. Like, educate them on farming, the different forms. And there was something else, two things. I forgot my second point, but yeah, you want to educate them about oppression and connect them with the land from the start, and not just, hey, we're coming here to farm and grow food for the community, but no, let me understand my history. Oh, the second point, the youth, whenever I do a workshop with them, they're always like, why do school not teach this? Why am I learning more at work than I am at school? And when I go over history with them, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you guys are not learning this in school. Like, you should be learning this. This is what I learned when I was in the 8th grade or 7th grade. And they're like, no, I've never learned this. And it's very important to, some of them rather come to work for the workshops and for what we have to teach them and share with them, rather than go to school, honestly.
Right. And I would lastly, I mean, we could go on. This could be a workshop in itself, but I would also say just ask them, honestly, like, what do they want? What do they want to see? Let that inform your program, because they need to see themselves. Like Iyeshima said, they think of a farmer as like someone in a straw hat. They don't see themselves. Once you're able to make that connection for them, and show them that their passions connect to food, you know, whether they like to write or photography or cooking or whatever it is, you know, you can make that connection for them. The last question that we can take is from Carrie, and it is, can you talk about where the funding for your amazing youth program comes from? Also, how do you get youth involved? Are youth compensated for their time?
Yeah, youth are definitely compensated for their time for whatever they do. Because we have first, second, third, and fourth year interns, they get paid at a different rate. And could definitely, like, because it's our last question, you could email me or reach out to me on social media, and we could talk more about that. I'm always willing to share all the knowledge I know when it comes to youth programs. But can you read the first part of the question? I totally forgot.
Where do you get funding from for youth programs?
Most of our funding is from private foundations. We do get support from the city through through discretionary funding from the city, but most of our funding do come from private foundations. We have great relationship with our funders, and our program has been around for years. So yeah, that's where we get most of our support from.
Yeah, okay, well, that is it from us. Again, thank you to A Growing Culture and everyone that's a part of this amazing lineup. We hope you learned something, and we hope that this was helpful for you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining our workshop today. And please feel free to reach out to me or Kristina directly in the future if you need any suggestion or any follow-ups.
The youth, man.